Very good morning to you. Welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
The headlines for you at 6 o'clock this morning. Another 5 million people are to be invited for their Covid vaccine. The over-70s and the clinically extremely vulnerable will be included in a major expansion of England's vaccination rollout.
Vaccines will start to be delivered at another 10 large centres from today. We're live at one of them, St Helens Rugby League ground.
Ministers come under pressure to extend the £20 a week uplift in universal credit as Labour forces a Commons vote on the issue.
The scheme has cost taxpayers £6 billion this year, but campaigners and charities say it is a lifeline for those on the lowest incomes. But a decision on whether to extend it may not come before the budget in March.
Travellers coming to the UK must now test negative for Covid-19 and self-isolate for 10 days on arrival.
Good morning in sport. England wrap up victory in the opening test against Sri Lanka, and it's a frustrating night for Manchester United and Liverpool, who played a goalless draw despite missed chances. United stay top of the table.
And snow may feature in the forecast again later this week, but before we get there, lots of heavy rain and a real risk of flooding over the next few days. I'll take you through the full forecast here on Breakfast.
Good morning, it's Monday, it's the 18th of January and millions of people in England aged 70 and over and those with medical conditions which make them extremely vulnerable to coronavirus will be invited for vaccination from today.
They will be joining more than 3.8 million people, mainly the over-80s, who've already received their first dose. It comes as 10 new vaccination hubs open across England. Our science correspondent Palab Ghosh has the details.
Right, let's get going.
The NHS is scaling up its immunisation programme. 10 new mass vaccination centres open today, bringing the total to 17. Medical staff have so far been giving jabs to the two groups on top of the government's priority list, care home residents and their carers, and to the over-80s, as well as frontline health and care workers. They remain the priority, but vaccination sites which have enough supply and the capacity will now be allowed to offer jabs to the next two groups on the list, the over-70s and the clinically extremely vulnerable, such as people who are receiving cancer treatment or have severe respiratory disease. The move is in line with the government's plan to vaccinate around 15 million of those most at risk from coronavirus by the 15th of February.
It's not going to be the case that on Valentine's Day or the 15th of February, with one bound we are free. But equally, I don't think that we will be having to wait until the autumn. I think somewhere between those two, subject, of course, to this uncertainty about new variants of the coronavirus. And it will be very important that we don't see those taking off in a way that undermines the effectiveness of vaccines.
Some hospitals will be open for vaccinations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on a trial basis in the next 10 days. Palab Ghosh, BBC News.
Well, let's speak to our reporter Mairead Smith, who is at St Helens Rugby League ground, which is one of those 10 new vaccination centres opening today. Morning to you. So how many people are expected there today?
Well, it's very hard to tell just how many will turn up here today because the people organising this aren't in charge of the booking system, but they're confident that thousands of people will be through the doors here, the home of the Saints, within this coming week. Letters will arrive over the weekend, and it's important to stress really that people cannot turn up here for their first vaccination jab unless they've been invited to do so. So this is the first jab. They will come in here, they'll be processed, they'll have a little bit of time to speak to somebody after they have had their injection as well. It's not just straight in and straight out. And it's important as well to say that people who have that jab here, that first jab, will return here in 12 weeks for that second shot. And this is all part of this plan to try and increase that number of people who get vaccinated, those vulnerable groups, over 80s, and now of course the over 70s as well will be invited. So this is one of 10 new vaccination hubs opening today. It's the only one in Liverpool City region, something that the Metro Mayor for this area, Steve Rotherham, fought long and hard for.
Thank you very much for that. We'll speak to you a bit later on and we'll be there throughout the morning.
Yes, and also we'll be talking to the Vaccines Minister at 7:30 this morning. At 8:30, we'll be joined by Professor Stephen Powis. He's the National Medical Director of NHS England. And I'm sure you have lots of questions. Do start sending them in. We will look through them and ask as many of them as we can.
He's going to be here at 8:30 this morning. All of the so-called travel corridors into the UK were closed at 4 o'clock this morning in a bid to prevent the spread of new COVID variants.
The new measures, which will be in place until at least mid-February, mean all arrivals will need to quarantine for up to 10 days. Here's our business correspondent, Katie Austin.
From today, people coming into the UK from anywhere must quarantine for 10 days upon arrival. If they pay for a COVID test after 5 days and get a negative result, they can leave self-isolation early. The rules apply to airports, Eurostar and seaports, but not people travelling within the UK or Ireland, or some jobs like hauliers. Also from this morning, the requirement to show a negative COVID test less than 72 hours before coming to the UK kicks in. The suspension of travel corridors, which removed the need to quarantine upon arrival from a list of places, was announced after new variants of coronavirus emerged in other countries. The trade body representing airports said it understood the reasons, but that although continuing restrictions meant traffic was already extremely quiet, the impact would be devastating.
Closing the travel corridors means that we will see even fewer passengers and it dents consumer confidence for the future. So it adds to the problems we're already seeing.
The government has said it's committed to helping bring the travel and tourism sector back to full strength as soon as it is safe to do so. Katie Austin, BBC News.
Thousands of National Guard troops are patrolling Washington, D.C. amid fears of more violent protests from supporters of President Trump as he prepares to hand power to Joe Biden.
As our North America correspondent Peter Bowes now reports, the capital remains on high alert.
New images of the uprising inside the US Capitol. At the time of the insurrection, Congress was certifying Joe Biden's election win. Rummaging through the desks of senators, the rioters came across papers belonging to Ted Cruz, one of the president's strongest supporters.
He was going to sell us out all along. Really? Look, objection to counting electoral votes of the state of Arizona. Can I get a photo of that? Wait, no, that's actually okay. All right, I'm pissed. He's with us.
Since that day, the US Capitol has been paralysed by the intense security that's turned Washington into a fortress. The FBI has warned that armed supporters of President Trump could try to disrupt Wednesday's swearing-in of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Any other year, there'd be throngs of people packed into this area to witness the inauguration.
This will be an inaugural like no other, in large part because of COVID, but we are going to get sworn in, and we're going to do the job we were hired to do. And that means focusing, for example, on getting people vaccinated.
The fear of more violence has been felt in all of America's 50 states. Capital cities have been put on alert with armed guards in position outside government buildings. Over the weekend, there were some small gatherings of demonstrators in a handful of states: Ohio, Texas, Oregon and Michigan, but nothing on the scale of what happened at the US Capitol nearly 2 weeks ago. The intense security in Washington will continue until after the inauguration and after Donald Trump has left town. The surreal sight of troops camping on the marble floors of the Capitol building, another reminder that these are far from normal times. Peter Bowes, BBC News, Los Angeles.
Now, the Foreign Office has said the UK is deeply concerned by the detention of one of the Kremlin's most high-profile critics, Alexei Navalny. He was held as he entered Russia for the first time since he was nearly killed by the nerve agent Novichok. He blames Russian authorities for that attack 5 months ago. The Kremlin, though, are denying any involvement.
Sir Richard Branson's rocket company Virgin Orbit has succeeded in putting its first satellites into space. They were launched on a rocket launched from an old 747 plane in California. Sir Richard has said he hopes eventually to do it from Newquay in Cornwall.
see the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.